Oh, hi there, this is Chandra Easton here, esoteric astrologer, speaking to you about the various astrological patterns that I can see as we move into January 2023. So I have the chart up here for the 1st of January, and you'll see that so you can see from the 1st of January there are 5 planets here in Capricorn. We have the Sun, Vulcan, Mercury, Venus and Pluto. This is a lot of Capricorn going on. It's a fairly serious kind of a time of the year. Good time to sort of look at the foundations that we're setting for the year. Good time to look at what's real and what's possible. Good time to look at the realities of our finances and wherever else in your life you're needing sort of clear goals and boundaries. Of course, when we have 5 planets in Capricorn, we must look and see what's happening with Saturn. And Saturn's sitting there in the 3rd decan of Aquarius. We are moving in leaps and bounds into the 21st century, and some of the advances that are going on in our world we may love, some of the technological, some of the environmental, some of the awareness, consciousness expansions. We may think they're wonderful, or we may not be happy with others, but whether we like it or not, Saturn's moving on through this 3rd degree of Aquarius, and we really have to choose where our community is, where our focus is, what our commitment is to. One of the other things that's noticeable in this first week of January is that Mercury had only just turned retrograde. And Mercury goes retrograde for 3 weeks, generally a couple of times a year, and it went retrograde on New Year's Eve, and I think it goes back on the, I think I had it written somewhere, is it the 22nd? Can't remember. 20th of January. So between now and the 20th of January, the task is to be reflective, to tune in, to look inwards. What is it that I want to commit to? Where's my discipline? Where's my dedication? Where will I put my mental focus? And of course, we're living in the world of information overload, so we do need to choose, because otherwise we are simply saturated. Look, it could be with sound bites, it could be with social media, it could be with radio, imagery, whatever, but we have to choose. What do I let in? What do I do with my filter? That's for all of us. Other thing to talk about here in this Capricorn stellium is Venus and Pluto sitting very, very close together, well, almost an exact conjunction. When Venus and Pluto conjunct, then there are things to be lost and things to be deeply committed to. Venus and Pluto in Capricorn call us to ask us, what are the principles that we hold dear, and let go of what we don't. So look, it could be that the principal amount of investment you have in your home is disappearing because of the interest rates. It could be that previously you were committed and loyal to some aspect of your life that now you realise is not as relevant as it used to be. There are matters to be surrendered. It could be some grudge we've held against another person, an organisation, ourselves, whoever or whatever it is, where we've been contracting in our capacity to see the truth or to share love. Let's move on beyond that. Yes, what else can I tell you about this first week of January 2023? The past life point that's impacting all of us, the nodal axis, is moving between 11.5 Scorpio and 11.5 Taurus. And of course this 11th degree is associated with fear, and so we just need to be very mindful that we are not motivated by fear. This could be a fear that we tell ourselves. It could be propaganda through the media. It could be an advertising campaign. Whatever it is that's pressing the fear button, step away from it. Refuse to make major decisions in your life based on fear, because they'll just come back to haunt you. Now, the South Node, the past life point, sits in the degree of fear the first, second and the third week. So for 3 weeks into January, and I think the opposite of fear is courage. Courage to find our heart, courage to get rid of the non-essentials, courage to dedicate our principles to people or organisations or choices that are worthy of that. The courage to say no to anywhere or in any way we are off track in our life or frittering our time and attention, so that we can get focused. Because Mercury in Capricorn's looking for focus, looking for dedication, looking for commitment. Okay, Uranus is still around the middle degrees of Taurus, what we call the cross quarters. Very dynamic placement, the cross quarters, and it's, how to describe it, it's like, well, there's upheaval and change happening everywhere. The weather is changing. The ability for some places for people to live in their homes. Some homes, many homes along rivers in Australia have been flooded, or indeed along the coastlines. For some countries or people, their homes are no longer safe because of war. Other places there may be change or upheaval and people are unable to grow the food they previously used to grow. Other places we may find that we are unable to pay the rent or the mortgage because the cost of living is going beyond our means. So there's upheaval and change around the land, around survival issues, around agriculture, around money. This is Uranus in the cross quarters. And again, it will be there. I don't know if it's the whole month. It's certainly the first 3 weeks. I've misplaced my ephemeris here, but certainly the first 3 weeks. Okay, what else can I tell you? Pluto is sitting in the 28th degree of Capricorn. This is a bit like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. We can look at a structure or an organisation or a government that's on the lean and wonder, how can that continue to function? At what point will it all come crashing down? And the point will come about as Pluto leaves these late degrees of Capricorn and moves into Aquarius. So I'm just having a look here in my book to see the date that Pluto moves into Aquarius, and there it is. It's the 24th of March. Was that 3 days after the Ides of March, 3 days after the Aries equinox? So we have many things on the lean that are sort of tilting. Now, what it is that's collapsing and needs to fall away in your life would be different to what needs to collapse and fall away in my life. And it may be different Australia to Scandinavia or wherever, but we need to be aware that life, some aspects of life on Earth are unsustainable. It could be the materialistic world. It could be the cost of living. It could be our faith in some government that's proven itself to be corrupt. It could be a plan that we've had for our future that evaporates beneath us. But whatever it is that is on the lean, on the tilt, unsustainable, well, we're all on notice that between now and the end of March, that's just a couple of months away, 8, 9 weeks, something like that, things are going to be recycled. And if we want to get ahead of the game, then we can consciously choose, what am I going to give up? What am I going to move on from? What is it that I previously defined myself or my life or my security with that is no longer going to fulfill that role? And of course, as Pluto moves, and I should say that Pluto is going backwards and forwards between the late degrees of Capricorn and the early degrees of Aquarius for, well, I'm thinking it's a year. Let me have another look, because I can't remember. I think it's, January 2024. It's not quite a year, it's 10 months in fact, that society and civilizations and life on Earth is on the tilt, what we call a void of course planet, between the sustainable and the non-sustainable. And because it's Capricorn, then it's got a lot to do with structures. You know, the structures in the governments, in the world economy, in the way we approach climate, in the way we approach the reconciliation of international conflicts. All of many old ways are going to be swept away as Pluto moves into Aquarius. Now, when Pluto moves into Aquarius, we have a choice. We can either go with the higher vibration and recognise that the heart has precedence. This is the human heart, and the compassion, the capacity for compassion, has precedence over the rational mind. It's really that simple. Or if we go with the lower vibration of Pluto and Aquarius, then we outsource everything to space, to technology, to the social media influencers, the giants, the Instagrams, the Facebooks of the world. Yeah? Because Pluto and Aquarius, in its lowest vibration, it's all about the technological one, or one might say the technocratic age, or one might say the chilling merger between the human biology and technology. You know, the wearable apps and things like this, or the installation of the nanobots within the physiology and the biology of humanity. That's a very low vibration, Pluto in Aquarius. Pluto in Aquarius in the highest vibration is let's learn to become colourblind so that we don't make judgments according to the haves and the have-nots, the black and the white, the male and the female, the Eastern and the Western. Let's learn to get rid of differences. A big ask, but this is what Pluto is offering humanity over the next 12 months. And we see this cliff-hanging Pluto between now and the end of March. Okay, and as I said, it goes on and off for 10 months. What else did I want to talk to you about? So that's and all of those things operate in the first, the second and the third weeks of January. I'll just move the chart forward and you'll see now I've moved it forward to the second week of January. We're nearly there now. And Venus has moved on from Pluto into Aquarius. So clearly there will be large amounts of humanity who love and embrace the sciences and the technology and space, and I'm not suggesting there's anything wrong with space. I'm an astrologer, for goodness sakes. It's a love, but space has consciousness. Humanity have consciousness. The animals have consciousness. The planet has consciousness, and as Venus is moving into Aquarius, what we have an opportunity to do is to, what's that saying? Think globally, act locally. It's a very global think, a very global consciousness approach, but a need to act locally. So if I'm concerned about the climate, for instance, then let's be mindful of how much electricity I use. If I'm concerned about the fate of animals, then consider vegetarianism. If I'm concerned about power and war, the beat of war running around the planet, then how about I work with meditation and contemplation to deal with the warring aspects of my personality? Yeah? So accountability, so that we are not separating into us and them, is extremely important. Okay, so that's the second week. You'll see we still have the 10th degree of fear. Don't let it run your life. We still have Uranus in the cross quarters of Taurus. Get one step ahead of the change. Be the change that you'd like to see in the world. We still have Mercury retrograde. Contemplate, live within our means, create sustainable structures, pick up personal responsibility. That's the second week. If I move it through until the third week of January, past life points the same. Uranus has moved minuscule amounts, still in that 15th middle degrees of Taurus. We still have 4 planets in Capricorn, but this time we have Vulcan right on top of Pluto. So we have the 2 planets associated with the ray of will and power. This is the week beginning the 15th of January, and Vulcan holds spiritual fire. We see spiritual fire on the planet through volcanoes and through earthquakes and through bushfires. We see it through shooting stars sometimes. We see it through leaders who demonstrate their heart and their compassion and their courage on the world stage. I wish there were more of them. And as Vulcan's very close to and on top of Pluto, hopefully some of the old power games will begin to crash or collapse, or some old structure that you've created that you've outgrown, you'll let it go. The beginning of the third week of January is about letting go and surrendering and trusting the divine within. Meanwhile, Venus has moved up until the middle degrees of Aquarius and sitting in the cross quarters. And it makes me wonder, I don't know whether Ukraine is governed by the sign of Aquarius. I wish I knew, but Russia certainly has a very strong Aquarian connection, and I suspect that Ukraine does also. So I would imagine that that third week of January will be a tipping point, or where the rubber hits the road. There'll be not that the conflict's not bad already, but that it will be intensified. And well, let's just pray that there's some degree of compassion and sanity that prevails, because clearly the old demarcations of how the world was divided up after the Second World War has changed so much, so that we need to find a way of working in a united approach for peace, and for the individuals who suffer at the hands of the faceless governments, or the faceless drones. So drones are a very good example of the Aquarian energy. This is what you might call faceless war. Yeah, okay, so that's what I'm looking at in the third week of January. I should have mentioned that Jupiter, I think it was about a week before Christmas, Jupiter moved out of Pisces and into Aries. And, Jupiter in Aries is like a bushfire with the wind behind it, driving itself forward to... we have to be extremely careful with Jupiter in Aries that we don't rush headlong into something that we will later regret. Look, it could be an extension on the house that we can't really afford. It could be an overseas trip that we would love to have that may not be sustainable. It could be overstepping our role, trying to use our power against someone else. But the Jupiter, I'm talking about this square between Jupiter and Mercury here. Mercury is trying to rein in Jupiter. So think before you speak, think before you act. By all means, find courage of your convictions, but don't use your convictions as something to beat another person with. I also wanted to talk about the yod that's set up here. This is the finger of the goddess. It used to be the finger of the god, but I've taken to calling it the finger of the goddess, that runs between Mercury and Capricorn, Mars in Gemini, and the South Node in Scorpio. So I'll talk a little bit about that. Mars in Gemini diversifies speech or energy too much, to such a point that things become befuddled or confused, and there's no clarity of, there's often no honesty, no integrity, no clarity. So there's clearly mixed messages is the kindest thing one can say about Mars in Gemini when it's touching the South Node. And then as it touches Capricorn, what we don't want is the spin doctors of the world pushing certain agendas to win certain elections, to get a certain erroneous point of view across. So all I can say about this particular yod is research your facts. Don't believe whatever you hear, whatever you read. Test it in the fire of your own heart, because there can be all kinds of half-truths that are being promulgated. Look, it could be from the boss that says, no, you're fine, your job's safe, don't worry about it, and then later on you're downsized. It could be that you're lying to yourself. Yes, I really am going to get around to X, Y, and Z that I know is the best way I can use my energy, but really you're just fobbing yourself off. Let's not fob ourselves off. Let's not be fobbed off with half-truths or out-and-out lies, either from an external source or from an internal source, because such lies come about from fear. I know it comes about from fear because it touches the South Node sitting here. Yeah, so this is a bit of a problematic, and you would find that a whole lot of things will be halfway through and unable to be completed. So this, and this is, I'm talking here from the 15th of January on into the third week. So if there's something that is worth doing, we'll do it well. Okay, Venus in Aquarius is square the nodes, square the South Node, square the North Node. Everyone has a line in the sand, things that we basically agree with or don't agree with. Could be your political view, it could be your spiritual principles, it could be a line in the sand between you and a loved one, a line in the sand between your ego and your soul. But there's an invitation to move forward through honesty, integrity, courageous speech that moves beyond fear. Yeah. Okay. I'm wondering what else I'll tell you. I'll move you on to the last, hang on, I was going to say the last week, but I'm moving us on to the 21st of January is the last day, beg your pardon, I'm going back one more day. The 20th of January is the day that the Sun leaves Capricorn, and I think that's also the day that Mercury goes direct. Yeah, so when Mercury goes direct, then anything that we've been pondering on or contemplating or not certain about, hopefully you get some internal resolution. Now I know what I'm going to do. Now I know which direction I'll take. Now I know where I'll spend my money. Now I've decided what I can commit to. Now I can see a path forward. So if you've got major decisions to make, I would suggest and recommend that you wait until the 20th of January before you sign on the dotted line, pay for that overseas trip, say yes to anything that's long lasting, because we need the period of Mercury retrograde to reflect. Okay, and right here at the end of the Capricorn period, we have the Sun and Pluto together. So, we've all seen images of, the icebergs from the northern or the southern poles just slowly melting away. And there's more ocean and less ice and less sustainable land for, the polar bears, for instance. That's the kind of image that I get around this sort of 19th and the 20th of January is that something that's unsustainable just simply melts, falls away, disappears. Yep. The need for restraint, from anger or anything that hasn't been thought through well, any plan, any project that hasn't been thought through well, say no to that. This is the square between the Moon and Mercury and Jupiter. Yeah. Venus comes very, very close to Saturn in these last couple of days of the Capricorn phase. I suppose we have to examine what we value. Do you value silence? Do you value money in the bank? Do you value the protection of loved ones? Do you value technology? Do you value the capacity for outreach through communication? Yeah. Choose what it is you value and put your energy into that. And that's the best advice really with Venus and Saturn together in Aquarius. And don't waste time overanalyzing, overthinking, over-separating them and us, me and you, mine and yours. Yeah? Forget all of those separative thoughts. Just focus upon the values. Okay, bit of a quick chat on the astrological influences through those first 3 weeks of January. This has been Chandra from Living in Light, starastrologyhealing.com. Catch you another time. Bye.